Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Speak English Daily. I'm Emma.
And I'm Leo. We're really glad you're here with us today. Whether you're a brand new listener or you've been learning with us for a while, this show is all about helping you sound more natural, more fluent, and more confident in real English conversations.
That's right. We focus on the kind of English people actually use at work, at home, with friends, or in those everyday situations that textbooks often forget.
And every episode, we take one small piece of the language, a few words, a real conversation, and help you really understand it so you can actually use it when you speak.
Today's episode is all about something we all deal with: time. But don't worry, we're not talking about grammar or tenses today.
Nope. Instead, we're focusing on those little expressions that help us explain when things happen and how events connect. Expressions like prior to, formerly, in the meantime, simultaneously, and a bunch more.
Some of them sound a bit formal, but you'll hear them in everyday English, especially when people are telling stories, explaining their schedule, or talking about life changes.
And by the end of this episode, you'll not only understand what these phrases mean, but you'll also know how to use them yourself in your next conversation, email, or even a job interview.
So here's how today's lesson works. First, you'll hear a short, real-sounding conversation between two friends, Alex and Mina, talking about a very hectic week.
Then we'll go back and break it down, one time expression at a time. We'll explain what each phrase means, how it works in real conversations, and give you tips for using it naturally.
We'll also share some personal stories along the way to make everything more memorable and fun.
And the goal here isn't just to know these expressions, it's to actually start using them at work, in casual chats, or even when you're telling a friend about your crazy week.
All right, let's jump into Alex and Nina's conversation and listen for those time expressions in action. Hey, Nina, sorry I didn't get back to you earlier. It's been a bit of a whirlwind lately. No worries. You okay? You sounded a little stressed in your message. Yeah, it's just prior to this week, everything was running pretty smoothly. I was just doing my usual shift work and prepping for the training course. Nothing too crazy. But then, suddenly, my supervisor resigned and they asked me to step in. Wait, what? They just handed you the reins? Pretty much. And I had like zero time to prepare. Previously, I'd only helped out with basic coordination, but now I'm leading the whole thing. Scheduling meetings, assigning tasks. It's overwhelming. Wow, that's a lot. Did anything go wrong right away? Oh, yeah. Earlier on, I had to brief the entire team on next month's rollout plan. I was totally unprepared. I fumbled through it, my hands were shaking, but I made it through. And didn't you also just move into a new place? Yeah, the flat's great, but here's the weird part. Formerly, it was a flower shop. So every morning, it still smells faintly like lavender and roses. It's kind of nice, but also weird when you're brushing your teeth and suddenly feel like you're in a garden. That's so random. So, what are you doing in the meantime? Trying to stay sane, honestly. Meanwhile, my sister's getting ready to study abroad. So we've been booking flights, buying gifts for her host family, all while I'm juggling this new role. So everything started happening simultaneously, your new job and her travel plans? Exactly. Both dropped on me at once. And after that, well, I've got a huge presentation on Monday. Then subsequently, I need to submit our quarterly report. Ooh, and your sister? She flies out Thursday. I'm joining her in Paris for the weekend. Just a short break. I plan to sleep through the whole thing. You've earned it. Seriously. All right, let's start with the first expression Alex used, prior to. He said, prior to this week, everything was running pretty smoothly.
Now, prior to just means before, but it sounds a little more formal. You'll often hear it in business, academic, or professional situations.
Exactly. You could just say, before this week, and that would be totally fine. But prior to adds a bit of distance. It makes the sentence feel more thoughtful, like something important changed.
And that's the cool thing. Prior to isn't just about time. It often marks a turning point, a contrast between how things were before and how they are now.
That reminds me, when I switched careers, I used this phrase a lot. I'd say, prior to becoming a teacher, I worked in digital marketing. It helped me to show that it wasn't just the job change, it was a completely different lifestyle and mindset.
I had a similar experience. When I moved abroad, people would ask, "Had you ever lived outside your country before?" And I'd say no. Prior to moving to Argentina, I'd only lived in my hometown.
Right, and using prior to gave that sentence a little extra weight. Like, this was a big deal. Something changed.
You'll also see this phrase in formal writing. For example, prior to joining this company, I worked in logistics. Prior to the event, we conducted a safety check.
So, to sum up, if you want to say before in a slightly more serious, polished way, especially when something important changed, prior to is a great phrase to use.
Now let's look at the next word Alex used, previously. He said, previously I'd only helped out with basic coordination.
So, how is previously different from prior to? Well, both mean before, but previously feels a bit more neutral, not as formal or heavy. It's like giving your listener a quick bit of background.
Yeah, it's super useful when you're telling a story and you want to explain what came before without making it sound dramatic or serious. For example, I might say, previously I taught in large classrooms, but now I do mostly one-on-one lessons. It shows the change, but it feels pretty relaxed and conversational.
Same here. I sometimes say, previously I worked freelance. Now I'm part of a teaching team. It gives a clear timeline without being too formal.
Another one, I used to live by the coast. Previously, my mornings were filled with ocean sounds. Now I hear traffic and coffee machines.
Nice. And the word works great in both casual and professional settings. You'll even hear it in news stories, previously on the show, or the company previously operated in Asia. So, if you're telling someone about your past job, your old home, or a change in your routine, previously helps connect the past to the present in the clean, clear way.
Exactly. It's like giving your listener a little timestamp without sounding stiff or overly formal. Next up is a more casual phrase, one that sounds super natural in everyday conversations. Earlier on. Alex said, earlier on, I had to brief the entire team on next month's rollout plan.
So, what does earlier on mean? It just means something happened a little earlier in the day or earlier in the same conversation or story. It's like saying a little while ago, but slightly more specific.
And it's perfect when you're talking about what's already happened today. For example, earlier on, I sent that email to the client. It's casual, clear, and super common in spoken English.
Let me give you a real one. Earlier on, I tried to fix our printer at home. I was so proud until I realized it wasn't even plugged in.
That's classic. For me, earlier on, my dog ran off with one of my socks during a Zoom meeting. I had to keep a straight face while chasing him across the room.
The nice thing about earlier on is that it anchors your story. It helps people follow the timeline without being too formal or robotic.
Totally. It's not something you'd usually write in an academic essay, but it's perfect for telling stories with friends, chatting at work, or even in interviews if you're keeping the tone friendly.
So remember, earlier on is for stuff that happened today or earlier in the story you're telling, not something from last week or last year.
Use it when you're walking someone through your day or giving an update. It makes your timeline feel clear and natural. All right, next we've got a slightly more formal word, formerly.
In the conversation, Alex said, formerly, it was a flower shop. So formally just means in the past, but it's no longer that way.
And this word is especially common when you're talking about something's past identity, like a job, a business, a title, or even a name.
Exactly. For example, I might say, I'm Emma, formerly a graphic designer, now an English coach. It adds a sense of transition, like one chapter of your life has ended and another has begun.
I've used this too. Formerly, I worked in finance. It sounds a bit more polished than just saying, I used to.
It's also useful when you're describing changes in places. Like that coffee shop on Main Street, it was formerly a hardware store.
Yeah, or when you read articles that say, Mr. Patel, formerly the head of marketing, it gives context about what someone used to do before their current role.
Just a heads up, this word is more formal than used to. You wouldn't say, my cat was formerly fluffy. You'd just say, she used to be fluffy, now she's shaved like a tennis ball.
So, use formerly when you're talking about a professional change, a building's past use, or something that used to hold a specific title or role.
Exactly. It works great in storytelling, job interviews, or presentations when you want to sound a bit more polished. Next up is a super useful expression that you'll hear all the time in real life. In the meantime.
In the conversation, Nina asked, So what are you doing in the meantime? And Alex replied that while work was busy, his sister was also getting ready to study abroad.
So what does in the meantime mean? It means during the time between two events. It's that little window, the in-between moment where something else can happen.
Like this, your train leaves at 5 o'clock, it's only 4:15 now. You could say, In the meantime, I'll grab a coffee.
Or the meeting starts in 10 minutes. In the meantime, I'll check my emails.
And it's not just useful, it's polite and practical. I use it constantly when teaching. While you're working on that exercise, in the meantime, I'll set up the next activity.
Here's a personal one. Last week, my car was in the shop for 2 hours. In the meantime, I walked to the park, had a snack, and listened to music. It made the wait feel way more productive.
That's the magic of this phrase. It's about using that waiting time for something else. You're not just waiting, you're doing something in the meantime.
So, if you're trying to sound natural and a little more efficient, this expression fits perfectly in daily conversations, work emails, or small talk.
Definitely. It's one of those phrases that makes you sound smooth, organized, and in control of your time. All right, now let's look at one of the more formal time expressions. Simultaneously.
In the story, Nina asked, so everything started happening simultaneously? And Alex said, exactly. Both things dropped on me at once. So what does simultaneously mean? It means at the exact same time. It's not just two things happening close together. They're literally happening together in one moment. Let me paint a picture. Last weekend, I was finishing a lesson plan, reheating lunch, and answering student messages all simultaneously. My brain felt like it was splitting into 3 tabs. I know that feeling. One time, I was teaching a class online while my neighbor's dog was barking, my laundry beeped, and my toddler decided to sing a song about dinosaurs simultaneously. I wanted to cry and laugh at the same time.